going to have a presentation from an internet and blockchain pioneer. And he is with a company called Verify, based in Hong Kong, the other side of the world. So Dr. Pinda Wong is going to be addressing us via the power of technology through Skype. And Dr. Wong, good morning, because we're in Ghana, but probably good afternoon or good evening to you. Yeah.
Testing, can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear, Dr. Wong. How are you?
Fine, thank you, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for having me again.
It's great to have you on the line, and we would love to hear your thoughts as we begin the second Ghana Blockchain Conference on the theme Blockchain Technology for Development. Take it away, Dr. Wong.
Thank you so much. And again, welcome, and thank you for having me. This whole speech via the internet basically goes to show how a change in technology can have a change in assumptions. Right? And we're now video streaming this live halfway around the world. Has it really been a year? What I would like to do is give you what I've learned and share with you from the regulatory side of things, because we are talking about blockchain for development. And I think Neil is very correct in pointing out just how early it is and why this technology has to be relevant to local needs, both in Ghana and on the African continent. So my speech today is on regulation, the notion of rough justice and code. Now, this is a reference to in some sense, the old architecture, which was the internet architecture. We talked about rough consensus and running code. But what I would like to do is make this talk today a little bit more engaging. So if I have the next slide, please. Slide 2. It's been a year since I spoke last. I apologize, I'm not able to be in Accra in person. I have been traveling a bit too much more than I would like. So, blockchain and cryptocurrencies is really about incentive design. And what's different from last year is now we've made these cryptocurrencies effectively like normal currencies. There's now a coin, a physical coin, or physical thing, open dime, and now there's now a bill called tan. So we've actually made cryptocurrencies physical. That's a big deal. Why? Because to make it more accessible to everybody. So to give you an incentive, I have a question for you, and I'll try and reveal the answer at the end of this talk, which is we have this slide, and I challenge anyone to tell me what these two things are at the end of this lecture. And if you are, I will find a way to get one of these tangent notes, these open dime devices to you at Accra. So that's the challenge. And the incentive are these new Bitcoin notes and coins. So you have to answer what is these two, what is this picture from the policy side and also from the technology side. So slide 3, please. So we've had a boom in commercial activity, some of it fraudulent. When you have invented the printing press and you have money, the first thing you do is you print money. And so initial coin offerings have come and gone. There have been a phenomenal amount of money being raised with very little recourse. And we have now moved on to putting some, in some sense, regulation or thinking about how to better prevent and ensure safety and soundness from a consumer perspective, because this technology is now touching consumers who may not understand the technical details and in some sense shouldn't have it. But the point I want to make, just like the earlier challenge of what is the diagram, it's for us to take what I call the duck test. If it has a beak, if it has webbed feet, and lives in water, then obviously we think we're looking at a duck. If it walks like a duck, if it bites like a duck. But as Professor Quaynar basically mentioned, I'm not exactly sure that we are clear looking at. It's early days in technology, and it might have a beak, it might have webbed feet, it might live in water, but it might be a straight platypus, something that we've never seen before. So the challenge here is that with a general purpose technology like internet, like blockchain, we need to be, in some sense, we need to be clear about what we are trying to regulate. Is it a currency? Is it security? Is it a utility token? Is it something else? I'm actually not too sure myself, other than it's something new, and we seem to be able to route what people perceive being value across the network, in this case across the global internet. So this would be very interesting for not just local business within Ghana, but all business with your neighboring countries where we see there is an opportunity to leapfrog and in some sense recognize many of the limitations of the existing internet architecture, which is what we've learned over the last years. And so at the end of this talk, I want to talk about a specific notion of how you in Accra and leapfrog and lead the way for basically the world. Slide 4. So in terms of where the technology began, which was cryptocurrencies, there are about 2012 now. The last time I checked was a few days ago. And this is compared with about 180 circulating currencies in the world. So Bitcoin will be 10 years old next year. And already there are over 10 times of circulating currencies, cryptocurrencies. Now, very similarly with stock markets or markets of exchanging value, we now have about 15,000 markets online. And you can check the coin market cap today to see the increases. Now, what does this mean? I'm not sure, but I think something's going on. That's what I'd say. And it's increasing, it seems to increase at a faster rate. Slide 5, please. The difference this time around is, unlike the internet, which has its own constraints on its own architecture, the value this time is not really through creating these big, thick green layers through applications. With blockchain, the value is actually extracted much lower in the protocol stack. In fact, the protocol itself adds value. And the best example of that is Bitcoin. There are other examples like Cardano, Ethereum, and again, take your pick. But what we are doing is experimenting with the different kinds of blockchain architectures that might make sense. Slide number 6. So one of the biggest limitations, and he was one of the first to recognize the importance of Bitcoin back in 2015, there was a chief technical problem to solve, which was these broadcast global blockchain networks like Bitcoin had a scaling problem. And so in that time, he was in Hong Kong, came to scaling Bitcoin 2, and the second one, and now the 5, I've had in Stanford University a few weeks ago in Tokyo. The Bitcoin network could only do 3 to 4 transactions per second. whereas Visa card or credit card companies can do something like 70,000 transactions per second. Now, after Mi's contribution and visit to Hong Kong, the change that was proposed in Hong Kong has now enabled the Bitcoin network, which can be viewed as digital gold, to about double, about 14 to 15 transactions per second today. But what's very interesting, and I think there are going to be several talks today about Lightning and layer 2 technologies, is this green layer on top, which can be viewed as some digital cash. Now, on this layer 2 network, which I think the opportunity for Ghana to contribute to, there are now current testing has indicated about you can do 500 transactions per second per payment channel, and there are about 12,000 payment channels. So the equivalent transaction rate is not 70,000 transactions per second, but 6 million transactions per second. So last year I talked about why this technology is a breakthrough tech. This is not linear incremental innovation. This is innovation where things go from effectively 3 transactions per second to 6 million transactions per second in space of 2 years. So 3 years, okay. So what's going to happen next years, I have no idea. But what I think is very interesting is that there's a new basis of Lightning technology called Bolt, and the link is on the slide 6. And I encourage many of you developers to look at this technology. Slide 7. But let's go back to thinking about the benefits, which is again cross-border trade, cross-border value exchange across anywhere on the internet. Bitcoin has been called the money for the internet, and obviously trade is the lifeblood of a lot of wealth creation. But the existing regime is really about every country has its sovereign laws, and every country has its national border. And the internet enabled us to have data across borders, but a lot of the discussion on internet governance shows the limits of international law. Specifically, there is no mechanism for credible and effective enforcement globally, either at the level of climate change or in some sense the internet. And so that's why this technology is also important from a regulatory perspective, because for the very first time we have a mechanism to effectively do enforcement at a network-wide level, which is why I call it talk of justice and running code. So it may well be that blockchain technology provides a new legal layer for the internet. And that's the next slide. Slide 8. Because what we're actually balancing here is regulation which has a rule of law and legal certainty with something completely different, which is not the use of words, rather the use of numbers. And so that's why I draw this yin-yang diagram. We have a new way of thinking about certainty, not legal certainty from a traditional regulatory perspective, but cryptographic certainty. Again, rule of law on the one hand, rule of code on the other hand. And so a very new example, which I encourage everyone to look at, is what I call a new legal layer of the internet. Again, we have rough justice and running code, specifically the 2 links at the bottom of the page, which is openlaw.io, and this new view of how to do mediation globally. And that is why the Belt and Road blockchain, which I designed, is going to exploit this new mechanism so that we don't have to rely on any single country's rule of law to have a way of doing online dispute resolution. Anyway, to close, in slide 9, if one considers blockchain technology just to be cryptocurrencies, then what is its value? From an ecosystem perspective, there is a very important result of research which indicates that for a stable ecosystem, for financial stability, you might need about 7 different kinds of money. And most right now, you only have one kind, which is fiat. With Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, we might have a second kind. But there are many different ways now that we can design currencies which were not available to us before. We can, in some sense, select the kind of economy that we wish to participate in. And now making money is in some sense a command line that we can write. That's going to be a big change. It's also going to be a big challenge. So in closing, I want to go back to what we started, to slide 10, which is, do we know what are these things? So I want to go to the audience. What do you think these two things are from the policy side and from the technology side? Let's have some suggestions. What are we looking at?
Any suggestions? There's a prize at stake.
And there's 2 prizes, right? The prize actually is a very important paper, which is a free prize. But as I said before, you can guess what both of these are. I will give you a OpenDime USB, or one of the new smart cards that can act as boots.
So the question again, Dr. Wong, what's the question for the prize, the potential prize winners? What's the question?
The question is, what does this picture represent? We've got a picture with policy and this thing on the technology. What are we looking at? This is the duck test. We know what we're looking at.
So what do those 2 pictures represent?
Do we know?
Are they supposed to be blank? Or is there something
Well, they want to know whether the pictures are supposed to be blank or they'll be revealed at a later time.
Oh no, this is exactly what, there's nothing to be revealed. This is it.
This is the revelation.
So I want to get everyone waiting for the day. What are we looking at? And again, you have a prize. There's 2 to 3 prizes, in fact. You have potentially
And the longer you stay on the line, the more the prices go up. It was 1, it's 2, now it's 3. Good stuff, Dr. Wong. Good stuff. So,
well, it's all about incentives.
So can we have some suggestions as to what we are looking at? Okay, I'm taking the microphone to somebody to answer.
Okay, good. Let's make it fun.
Yeah, Kathy, I think we need a clear policy to make the technology move very fast. Or we need a clear policy to make the technology clearer. That's how I see it.
Wow. Close. Very, very close.
All right, so now you have an idea. Another person, you want to try? Okay. We have a lady who wants to respond.
2 more guesses.
Yes.
Well, I think the policy stands for the government regulations. Then technology is the blockchain technology we're talking about.
Also very close. Very, very close. You need to combine it and you're almost combine concepts.
Basically, with clearly defined policies, technology can work efficiently. Should I say it again?
Not bad. Okay, this is just set to the what I was trying to represent is that.
Can I try one more response?
Do we have any more?
Yes, one more.
One more, okay. I'm trying to make it fun.
We need a regulatory policy that can harness the technology available so that every participant will be safe in terms of its investment.
Wow. I think everyone in this room are genius types. I like to break things much simply. So let me just share with you again this game. What I was trying to say was that this policy right now is gray area. And as far as the technology, because of the policy, we're actually dealing with a black box technology. So what these two things are supposed to present is a gray area and a black box.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peter Wong.
Give me one last slide and close it. We have just had all the online resources to learn now about the deep tech on the Bitcoin Edge site. And if there's one thing you should remember is it's on the development resources. This is my hopefully biggest contribution I can make for development of this technology in Africa, led by Ghana. If I believe it's time for Bitcoin to implement this recursive internet work architecture arena. So the homework exercise is to recognize why the internet architecture, the limitations of the existing internet architecture need to effectively be evolved or deployed in a different way. And VINA is a very interesting architecture that is, I think, ready now for deployment. So I hope that God will combine Bitcoin technology, VINA, and make a true difference in the world. Thank you very much.
We thank you very much. Big round of applause for Dr. Peter Wong, Internet and Blockchain Pioneer from Verify Hong Kong. We wish you the very best. Have a beautiful day. So, gray area, black box. Now we're all kicking ourselves. But that was great. We'll now take two more presentations before our first break. The first will be done by the Executive Director of the Ghana Domain Name Registry. Please put your hands together for Nana Kofi Asafu Edo.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, sir.
For those of you who don't know, Kafu was my senior in secondary school. I said secondary school. And he was a very nice senior. But anyway, Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Professor Ni Nakukoino, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I feel a great privilege to be here today, even though I was called at the last moment by the person who was supposed to be on here. I consider it a great privilege because in 1995, Professor Koino started something in Ghana, which turns out to be a cornerstone of the internet in Ghana and in Africa. And I always wondered what it would have been like to be there at the beginning and to go through all the things that he went through to get it to a particular point. So when I was called today to come to the blockchain conference, I realized it's a second chance to be at the beginning of a barrier-breaking activity in Africa. Blockchain technology as it stands is very advanced in other countries, but it's going at a slow pace in Africa. And again, Dr. Koino is at the forefront. A lot of you see him as a professor, but to me he's like a Marco Polo of technology, a leading explorer, always in the front of new discoveries. And so I want to give a special thanks to him as well. So when I started in the IT industry, software was installed on bare metal, on boxes sitting in the corners of offices. Many years down the line, we put software in the cloud. Today, blockchain is a new technology, and I think that having a conference like this is very important to get awareness out there, to get governments and regulators and policymakers to be aware of what blockchain is, what its advantages are, what its possibilities are, what its potential problems are, these things should be known ahead of time so that policies can be made. Like the gentleman said earlier, policies are a gray area, and the technology is still a black box. I mean, our goal, starting from now on, should be to make the technology a white box and the policy a white box as well, so that there's clarity across both areas. Those of you who are here today, I think you should also consider it a privilege and to be lucky to be here. Because as much as most of us see blockchain as being Bitcoin, it's definitely just the underlying technology for Bitcoin. Because it's distributed, it's ordered in time, it's immutable, it's something that can be used to create smart contracts, do all kinds of things which we haven't seen yet. So this is an opportunity for you to come up with innovations to put on top of blockchain. The market is open, so make sure that when you're here today, you come with an open mind, you learn what's to be learned, and you also put yourself in a position to contribute to this exciting new technology. And with that, I want to welcome you to the second blockchain conference. And I hope you have a fun and exciting and amazing time. Thank you.
Many thanks, Nana Kofi Edu, Executive Director of the Ghana Domain Name Registry. At this point, we are ready, willing and able to listen to our keynote address, which will be delivered by the first Deputy Governor at the Bank of Ghana. Please put your hands together for Dr. Maxwell Opoku Afari.
Good morning.
Morning.
And apologies for walking in late. On my schedule, it was 10 a.m. That's when it was supposed to start. So, Kafi, you forgot to introduce yourself today. Kafi was my mate in Lagos. And not just my mate in Lagos, we were in the same hall. We will not disclose the name of the hall, right? They know already.
I'm sure. You're not disclosing.
Okay. Good morning to everyone. Really pleased to be here. I was part of the first one, so you realize that I have a keen interest, despite the fact that Bank of Ghana in particular has a keen interest. I personally also have a keen interest in blockchain technology. Professor Kweli, thank you very much for giving me another opportunity to be here again. I heard my other colleague talking about how technology has moved, and my mind just went back to 1990 when I was in Lagos, and I was doing statistical computing, and we're writing all these fancy languages, programs, but there were only about 5 computers in the whole university at the Great Hall. So they'll give you 25 minutes one evening on Monday to go and type in all the fancy COBOL languages that you've written. And then you go in there and type everything, COBOL, Pascal, basic programming. You type everything and it never runs. I don't think I managed to run my program even once. Because I was just then being introduced. I could write it very well. So on paper, I could score 100%. But putting it in the computer, it never runs. The only output you get is syntax errors. And it's a lot of them. Because we were doing, how do you say it in Chi? A1B. We never used to the computer. That was the first time we're being introduced to the computer. And you had only 25 minutes. Trying to point the keys this way, someone is standing behind you, and after 25 minutes you lose the slot. And a friend of mine decided to be very smart, so we had one guy who really managed to run his. So he decided to dab his work and forgot to change the program to change his name. So he put his name on top of the guy's name. So they had 2 names there, and both of them scored 0. That was in 1990. This gives you a sense of how far we've traveled. I mean, from 1990, this was my experience. This was my first introduction to computers. And this is how far we've traveled. But that technology or that exposure did not leave me. During my PhD program, I had to write my own program to run my own econometric programs. So it was a good experience to learn to write it. But I think that you are in a different environment where you are not even afraid of the keyboard. And that is something that I think we should celebrate. But that's the end of the fun part, because as central bankers we are very conservative. So if you don't mind, I'll read my speech. And that is very boring. Because you don't want to say something on the fun part which will be quoted, and later you will sit there and say, did I really say that? So once again, good morning and you're welcome. I think in response to a lot of demand for enhanced transparency, trust, speed, security, and cost of financial services, emerging technologies are being explored, and blockchain technology, therefore, emerged as a key enabler on account of its attributes of transparency, traceability, and immutability. This technology has attracted attention in recent times, and it is anticipated to have significant impact on the conduct of future financial transactions. Blockchain technology, therefore, offers potential to bring changes to the existing practices in various fields such as remittances, trade, finance, and corresponding banking on account of the drive to improve efficiency, provide a superior customer experience, combat fraud, and break into new markets. Industry in a number of countries has pooled resources to defray the cost of experimentation entailed in scalable use case for blockchain technology. I therefore urge all of you in this space to come together to develop blockchain technology applications for remittances and trade finance. To maximize its potential benefits, it is necessary to identify the inherent risks and institute mitigating measures to contain the risk. Also, clarity has to be given or established for terminologies, because it's getting very confusing. Technical standards and approaches in its implementation. Governance and standardization issues are also necessary to foster end-to-end security and interoperability among different systems. The Bank of Ghana is therefore monitoring developments in the blockchain technology space, and will facilitate its adoption in the financial sector. At the core of the financial sector digitization agenda is confidence. It is therefore important that the necessary conditions are created for customers of financial services to trust digital systems so as to engender confidence in the emerging ecosystem. To sustain this confidence, digital products and services should be secure, affordable, fast, transparent, and accessible, and have good audit trail. These issues are of concern to customers and should therefore be at the forefront of product development and delivery. Efforts at digitizing the financial sector have started yielding results, and we are all beginning to see this. But to achieve the set financial inclusion target, which is one of the key policy objectives of Bank of Ghana, to improve financial inclusion, the bank has initiated a payment system regulatory reform by drafting the Payment Systems and Services Bill, which is currently being gazetted for or being prepared for parliamentary consideration. The bill makes provision for market participants to leverage on emerging technologies, which include blockchain, to deliver products and services to foster financial inclusion. The draft bill is a consolidation of the amendments to the existing Payment Systems Act and the guidelines for electronic money issuers, which was introduced in 2015. It also includes provisions on issues pertaining to the role of financial technology firms, the fintechs, and the non-bank payment system providers, management of cybersecurity risk, compliance with information security standards, data protection, and outsourcing relationships. As part of the reforms to support financial sector digitization, the Bank of Ghana on October 22nd that was last Monday, launched a cyber security directive for the banking and payment system. The directive is aimed at providing a framework for effective management of cyber security risk in the banking and payments industry. Compliance with the provisions of the regulation is expected to enhance security of the payment and settlement systems environment, enhance market integrity, promote customer confidence, and scale up digitization of the financial sector. Also, a draft guideline on electronic payment channels has been prepared. The guideline aims at promoting standards, security, competition, efficiency, accessibility, and consumer protection in digitally delivered financial products and services environment. Ladies and gentlemen, a robust and resilient financial sector is fundamental to the financial sector digitization agenda. In spite of the growing significance of non-bank entities in the banking space, banks continue to be at the forefront of the sector. The role of banks as settlement agents, liquidity providers, and funds custodians are fundamental to engendering trust in digital finance. The banking sector reforms currently being implemented by the Bank of Ghana is therefore aimed at building strong and resilient banks capable of supporting a digitized financial sector. Let me therefore conclude by assuring you that the Bank of Ghana is committed to building a digital financial sector that is inclusive and support the development agenda of the country. For this reason, we will continuously provide a regulatory environment that is supportive of innovation without undermining stability of the financial system. I urge you to be guided by responsible innovation in your deliberations on blockchain and its applications for the financial sector. Thank you very much, and I'm really pleased to be here to participate in this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, First Deputy Governor Bank of Ghana, Dr. Maxwell Ofari. And that brings us to the end of the first session for today. We're going to have a break, take some selfies by the backdrop, network with friends, and then we return at 11 o'clock for the next session, which promises to be quite exciting. It's going to be moderated by a friend of mine, Bernard Avle, and we'll be looking at an issue that should be quite interesting. So we're looking at governance issues, so blockchain, cryptocurrency, real estate, financial systems, safety, policy, and development. And like I said, moderated by Bernard Avle. From Bank of Ghana, we have Mr. Michael van der Pooy. We've got Gibbs also here in the person of Mr. Kojun Chin, General Manager, Technology and Operations. We've got Lan Leby, Business Development Manager, Mrs. Sylvester Seji. We've got me, Nana Kofi also Edu will also be speaking to us on that particular panel. And then we also have from the University of Cape Coast Computer Science Department, Mr. Isaac Ama Mensah. So that will kick off at, we'll probably have you here in about 15 minutes. So at 5 to 11, we'll gather back here and then we'll start that panel. So thank you very much. Thank you, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. There are 5 people on the panel. 4 have spoken. I just wanted to introduce the 5th person who will not be speaking. She is Dr. Ayoko Kosa. She's Senior Lecturer of Computer Science Department at Ashesi University. People know the way. Yeah, she is. Thank you very much, and we'll come back here 5 to 11 for the governance session. Thank you. Let's welcome Mr. Michael van der Poel from the Bank of Ghana. Let's welcome Mr. Kojo Ukraine. Kojo Itim, I beg your pardon, from the Ghana Interbank Payment and Settlement Systems. Let's welcome from Lanley by Sylvester Seth Edgy, and then from the Ghana Domain Name Registry, Mr. Nana Kofi Edu, and from the University of Cape Coast Computer Science Department, Isaac Ama, and then Salon to check next one, everybody is here, and I'll bring on the moderator. All right. It's one thing I love about some of the conferences. So for most of them, it's like you do everything. So you MC, you moderate, and it can be really, really tiring. But in other circumstances, you have you share the platform with great professionals who make your work easy. It doesn't affect my fee, so it's great. Up next is a gentleman who is very familiar to your ears if you listen to City 97.3 weekdays 6 to 10, and he also has a TV career. He's on City TV as well. He's a young, erudite, smart, intelligent, well-read gentleman, and he's going to steer the panel discussion right now with a big round of applause. Let's welcome Mr. Bernard Koku Affleck.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wow. The devil is a liar. When you prepare your notes and you are in the order that you want to use it and it scatters. There's been one more there.
Make it go.
You know, when I was in level 200, there was some statistics paper, and I studied the whole night, and I tuned the order I was going to answer the questions. And then the lecturer changed something small. Have you ever prayed in an exam hall before? Put the paper aside and say, Lord, if you don't pass, I will fail. So even though I've arranged my notes, I'll see what I can do. Look, I'm very happy to be here, and I'm so encouraged by what I'm seeing with the technology community, because I feel that before any industry can really take off, you need a vibrant community. They'll keep it small and tight. They'll trash out all the issues so that when it becomes mainstream, it will not collapse on us. So for me, I'm very excited. I'm sure some of you are worried, how come we don't have more media houses? Why isn't this on the front pages? Things that are important, when we make too much noise about it, some people come and spoil it. So let's develop it and think through it properly. So all these things we are doing are part of the building blocks, answering all the questions, working on the relationships. It's not as if we know everything, but at least we'll answer some questions. So by the time it becomes something everybody's talking about, there's already a system of information that is well tested. How many of you agree with that idea? So I think you should clap for yourself because you're part of something very special. I also want to acknowledge Professor Anita Kweno because he forces journalists to study. He sort of throws you in at a deep end and he says, oh, I know you can do it. He knows you don't know anything about the thing, but he says, I know you can do it. Which means you have to go and study the thing. So, Prof, thank you so much for where is this Prof, thank you so much for the constant prodding of we the media guys. Hopefully, this will be mainstream. That's the word we are looking for. So, I have a panel of people who know more than I do about this. But what I'm good at is asking questions. Your topic is very powerful. So, I'm told the topic for my panel is governance, blockchain, cryptocurrency, real estate, financial system, safety, policy, and development. It's very long. So, I've decided to change it. Yeah, I've changed the topic. So we will simply go to the theme for the day, blockchain technology for development, right? So what we'll do is, I have about 4 questions and we have 6 of you. So I want to make it exciting. So I'm going to tell you what questions I hope you want to answer. But I'll ask each question in turn, so it will be more exciting, memorable. What is development to you? Because some of you are Bank of Ghana people, some of you are GIPS, some of you are private sector, some of you are lecturers. So when we say development, what do you mean? What do you understand by it, right? And then of course, we'll ask the logical question, which is, how does blockchain stroke crypto apply in your field? Is that a good question? It's a good question. How does blockchain